What's up, y'all? And welcome to AABTV, also known as Authentically RGBTV. And y'all, did y'all watch the Freaknik documentary on Hulu? It came out on the 21st. I watched it in its entirety yesterday. So we're going to get into it and we're going to talk about it. So, y'all, this entire documentary was about like an hour or so long. I want to say like an hour and 22 minutes because I was really trying to get into the meat and potatoes of everything. So it starts out with the history of the Freaknik, which I had no idea. I was born in '88 and of course grew up in the '90s. So I remember hearing about these things because I have older cousins. But for the most part, of course, I could not participate. But it was very, very nostalgic. I can say that watching this. But anyways, we get the beginning of it, which was basically in about 1983. There was a group of friends who was in Atlanta, wasn't going home on spring break, didn't want to just sit around and not do anything, so they decided to, you know, have these gatherings with other college students in the area, and they said something about a song that came out that had the word freak in it, and basically they wanted to bring the freak back, but not in a, you know, sexual type of way, more so to do with the song that was out at the time. And it was, oh, I know what it was. It was Freak Out, you know that song. So they decided to take that from that song and call it, you know, instead of the picnic, they called it the Freaknik, you know, from the song, and then picnic. And like the lady said in the video, they, you know, used picnic before we knew the real history behind picnic. And if you don't know, look it up. Anyway, so they were talking about how at the college that they went to, people from, you know, different cities all used to get together and they called each other clubs. So the founders of the Freaknik were the DC Metro Club. They were all from around the same area, all went to the same school. So they decided to link up, like I said, and have this entire gathering for spring break, you know, advertised for it, told, you know, the destination, Piedmont Park in Atlanta. And that's basically where the Freaknik just grew. And it used to be, you know, just basically just everybody gathered, word of mouth, because, you know, they didn't have social media and all of that stuff. And it was always just a grand old time. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as the years progressed. And they, you know, met up with each other in this documentary just to speak about it, you know, their thoughts of how it ended, their thoughts of, you know, during the 90s when it got real, real, real big and real, real, real crazy, and just not realizing the impact on culture and the influence that they would have, just because, you know, it was a few kids who couldn't afford to go home on spring break in the 80s, and that is how Freaknik was born. In this documentary, we had a lot of our Atlanta faves, which not a lot of people on there that I personally thought would have been on there, but we did have Jermaine Dupri, we had 21 Savage, we had Killer Mike, we had Rashida, we had Uncle Luke, CeeLo, which he wasn't really on there for real. We had some people from the Dungeon family, different people that worked in the government during that time, and for the city in Atlanta. And so, like I said, you know, how it got started, you know, it's all about the Greek life. It was like Atlanta was just black mecca of all these, you know, people who were just doing well. And so they wanted to, you know, capitalize on that. They wanted to be just a black space, you know, and enjoy us, you know, by us, for us. You know what I'm saying? So every third weekend in April. This is when the spring breakers would come. And towards the 90s, that's when I would say I just got my life from the fashion, the hair, the nails, just, you know, the culture, the slang, all of that stuff. Like, I was just getting my life because, again, I have older cousins, and when I was growing up, I just wanted to be like them. They seemed like they had so much fun. Even though I know there was probably drama back in those days, I didn't really hear about it. And then just having people in my family during that time who did live in Atlanta that went to college there, you know, just looking back at the pictures and all that stuff, it was just like, just, oh my God. It was just, I was just getting my life. And I was like, black people, we be black people, and it's just amazing to be black. So anyway, so in the early 90s, we had more and more people becoming familiar with it, and it was just growing. Like I said, in April during spring break time, and even in that time, we had, like, you know, like they were saying, there was like Daytona Beach, and all these other places where it really wasn't targeted for our people to go. And so, again, when there is something that's not targeted for us, we're going to create our own space. And that's exactly what they did. And it was sold out. They was talking about how it was like bumper to bumper traffic. People couldn't get nowhere. The highways was backed up with traffic. So the traffic was the party. I know somebody said that. And there was like Eric Sermon was another person that was on there, and he talked about how he came down to Atlanta in '91. He hooked up with another guy there. They had a rim shop, and they were supposed to sell rims. It was upstairs, and then downstairs was a studio. But as we got, you know, as Freaknik got larger and larger, people would just be outside in the parking lot, spending the night in the studio. And he talked about how there was like up and coming celebrities that we know today who would come there, use the studio, spend the night there. People was renting U-Hauls, um, uh, you know, carpooling with people, um, even spending the night in the cars because they didn't have either the money for the hotel, or they would hook up with other people and go to their hotel because they just wanted to be in Atlanta. They wanted to be where everything was happening. Like I said, the fashion trends, the cars, the rims, it was just like the cell phones, the nails. Um, I was just like, first of all, then they had Rashida on there talking about the fashion. Because if we're being honest, you know, she be dressing real nice. And she talked about, you know, her working in the mall during that time, and how the guys would come in and get the jabot and the Carl Kanai and y'all, all of this stuff. I was just like, oh my gosh, they're bringing all that stuff back, or trying to, should I say? But it's nothing compared to when it was like really being done. Um, because you just can't emulate that, because you had to be there. You just had to be there. And I remember the big door knockers, the dark lip liner, the polo collar shirts, the big baggy clothes, the little swoop with the pin curls, the long nails with the curve, the big rings, you know, the anklets, the bracelets. Somebody said something about the herringbone chains. Oh my God. The pagers, the big chunky cell phones. I'm talking about, I was getting my life just watching this, y'all. And I was like I said, black people, black people, we gonna set the trends. And can't nobody do it like us. Can't nobody do it like us. So in the early 90s, as Freaknik is getting larger and larger, they started to have more and more celebrities come about. They heard about it, you know, on different TV shows. And like I said, the people who, you know, birthed the Freaknik, as they were, you know, graduating college and all of these things, they were starting to hear about, you know, people talking about it on TV. And I know they had a clip of the show A Different World, which, you know, talked about black kids going to HBCU. And they were talking about it, like, you know, I think it was two of the characters. I know one of them's name was Freddie, and I can't think of the other girl's name because I watched it, but I don't, you know, don't watch it like that. But anyway, they were talking about spring break coming up and how they want to go Freaknik. And one of the guys who created the Freaknik was just like, oh my gosh, it was just like, they're talking about my Freaknik, like it's gotten this big to where it's on TV. People are talking about it. Celebrities are coming. They had like uh who was it? Notorious B.I.G. performed. Uncle Luke performed, and yeah, when Uncle Luke was there, it was pure mayhem. But like he said in the documentary, basically him being there brought the freak. And I was like, yeah, because again, when I think of Freak Nick, I think of the clips and the things and the stories that I've heard and I've seen where the girls is twerking and booty shaking and just doing out the wild stuff. And he said he's the one that brought that type of vibe to the Freaknik. And because he was, the person that had those type of lyrics and shake it here, shake it there, let me see this, let me see that. The girls wanted to get their life, and that's exactly what they did, and the dudes went right along with it. Um, and Uncle Luke was also talking to Jermaine Dupri or about Jermaine Dupri and how basically So Def was born or birthed, and he was basically like the start of the Southern rap, and Atlanta was like the gateway to Southern rap, and how JD, somebody said JD was like the Diddy or the Dr. Dre of the South. And they talked a little bit about how he um brought all of that, like the music aspect to it and the concerts and all of those things, and how he had Chris Rock, Chris Cross, the Brat, Escape, all of those, early 90s artists that was really, really big, and how, he paved the way for it. And, he is, JD is Atlanta. So Def is Atlanta. So, of course, why not have him on there to talk about it? And they talked about, their memories of it, people, things that they saw when they first, what year they first participated in it, and how it just brought so much of our culture, so much business, so much energy to the city. And of course, as things just get bigger and bigger, things get crazy and crazier and chaotic. But the early 90s, the 91 through 94, 5, 6-ish kind of, that was the time. That was a time to be there. And I wish I was. I really do. I wish I was there. So we're gonna get into like the 93, 94 era, like I said. So yeah, Uncle Luke done brought the freak to the Freaknik. And like I said, he was proud of it. He didn't care, And yes, in this documentary, Lord, excuse me, y'all. It's really early, but in this documentary, yes, they had, clips and stuff like we all thought they would. Probably people did see their mamas, their daddies, their aunties, whoever on there. But I mean, for the most part, they kept it PG. No, not PG. They kept it pretty much censored as much as they could. Any type of body parts except for like a strip club scene. They didn't really show much. They had it blocked out, but they showed a lot of the booty shaking and a lot of the gyrating. So it's not as bad as we thought it would be. But like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the documentary. But anyway, Uncle Luke brought the freak to the Freaknik. And they got to talking about this section about black women. And again, about how they dressed, how they felt during that time, how they wanted to be free to express themselves sexually. And they didn't really see it as, them being like a hoe or anything like that, but just them wanting to be free. Um, wanted to show off their bodies and wear the Daisy Dukes and wear the little short shorts and the dresses, and being the ones to be the aggressors as far as like hitting on the men and telling them what they want to see from them, and not taking no stuff from the men who is groping them, and they getting with them, um and just trying to enjoy themselves. They're college students. They want to break. They're not in their hometowns. So they don't got no reputation there. So why not just let loose and have fun? And I get it. But there was a segment, like I said, where Rashida was talking about the Daisy Dukes. Of course, we get the history of where they came from a show back in the days a white lady had the short shorts on, but they was basically saying, black women with them natural bodies, them curves, them hips, them thighs, like we gonna fill out some shorts and they ain't gonna look like Daisy Duke from a TV show. It's gonna be a little bit booty meat hanging out. It's gonna be like stop and stir, and that's exactly what it was. And the Daisy Duke versus the coochie cutters, and all of that stuff. And I was like, I remember people calling shorts coochie cutters, and just like I said, y'all, it was just like so much blackness, and I'm gonna keep on saying it. I don't care. It was just so much blackness. They had the video cameras, them big video cameras, are talking about, if you was a baller, you had your video camera and you was riding around in the car, standing up in the cars through the sunroof. Sometimes with the bumper to bumper traffic, people would get out, hop on your car and start dancing and shaking their butts, talking to you through the window, getting your number and writing it down on a piece of paper, and having to remember who this man was or who this woman was. So you got to put this number green dress, this number black shirt, and stuff like that, because of course he couldn't program the numbers in the phone and all of that stuff and FaceTime. So they had to remember, what was going on. They had hotel parties, people was drinking Dom Perignon, spending a whole bunch of money, just had the city on lock. And of course there are people who did not like it, who did not appreciate it, who felt like it was doing too much. But around that time, like I said, in the early 90s, it wasn't no real drama. It was just people just really trying to enjoy their life, college life. And in 1994, they claimed that it was the biggest Freaknik, because around this time it was like, okay, everybody's there. People from the city coming, there's vendors, there's people cooking, trying to sell whatever they could to make a dollar. There was a man who even came from Nashville, Tennessee to do airbrush shirts because he heard that, it was gonna be like sold out. They had, shirts and hats that said I survived spring break or Freaknik 1994, hats that said Freaknik 1994. There was, and that's when, JD and all of them was talking about how there was nowhere for people to go, so the traffic was the party. It would take hours just to get from one block to the next, and so people decided, as we often do, why not have the party here in the middle of the street? And if you are from where I'm from Kentucky, Louisville to be exact. And this reminded me again of the early 90s, around this time, where the Kentucky Derby was a spot for just everybody in the city, or a time in the city, to just have a ball. And growing up, I can vividly see this picture. We would all get together, my family, and of course other families around the city, get together, have our derby, cookouts, and if you were old enough, you could go to Broadway. And Broadway is this long strip from one end to the other. And, there were, again, vendors, people out there selling shirts, waters, food, all of this stuff. And what people would do would get in their cars and go from one end of Broadway to the next. It was like huge, especially in the 90s. And my cousins, like I said, I can remember this picture vividly. There's somebody on my auntie's porch, and my cousin at that time and her sister, they had, they were teenagers in high school. They had on like these fly hockey shirts with some like Reeboks with the tube socks, kind of ruffled up at the bottom, and some little bark shorts, and they big old door knockers, they French buns with the curls or the crimps, their lip liner, and they was like, with those 90 poses in a picture, long nails, y'all, and they were on top of their car, and they was about to go to Broadway. Oh my gosh, if y'all from Louisville, Broadway in the 90s, y'all know. Y'all know. Some of y'all probably was down there and wasn't supposed to be down there. But if y'all know. That's what it reminded me of. Bumper to bumper traffic, people recording, people dancing, people getting out. Now some people doing some explicit stuff unnecessarily. Not all, but some. Using it as an excuse to just do way too much. But again, they wanted to express themselves. They felt like there was no judgment. let's wild out, let's have a ball. So from Freaknik to Louisville, Kentucky at Derby, it was one and the same.